My name is Robert Hall, and I am 62 years old. For almost 30 years, I served as the Chief Financial Officer at Midwest Industries, one of the largest manufacturing firms in Chicago. 3 decades filled with spreadsheets, risk assessments, and decisions involving millions of dollars. Yet my greatest passion was always my family. Linda, my wife, along with our children, Michael and Emily, were the center of my life. Every bonus I earned, every pay raise I received, I thought about them first. When Michael wanted to pursue his MBA at Northwestern, I willingly covered the $40,000 required without a second thought. Later, when Emily chose to open a boutique in Lincoln Park, I funded the initial $100,000 for her venture. For Linda, there were no limits: trips to Europe, a new Lexus every year, and the dream house we built in Wetka. At work, I was known as a reserved, methodical man. They nicknamed me the silent calculator because of my calm and collected nature. Yet, in the last few months before retirement, something shifted at home. Linda became distant, spending a lot of time on the phone whispering, cutting conversations short whenever I entered the room. Michael and Emily began asking odd questions about inheritance, my investments, and what would happen to everything after I was gone. If you enjoy chilling tales of revenge and unexpected twists that keep you wanting more, subscribe to the channel right now. We post 2 original stories daily, each more gripping than the one before. The day of my retirement party finally came. We kept it simple, just family gathered in our backyard for the celebration. Among a handful of close friends, I genuinely felt joy while reflecting on the plans Linda and I had crafted together. We imagined exploring the country in our brand new motorhome, visiting the grandchildren we wished to welcome soon, possibly owning a small house in Florida to escape the cold winters. It was right in the middle of the celebration that everything fell apart. Linda came up to me, wearing a smile that did not reach her eyes, holding a manila envelope firmly in her hands. "Robert," she said, with a voice as chilly as a Chicago winter, "I have a retirement present for you." I unfolded the envelope to find divorce papers. Blurred for a moment, I read the opening lines: irreconcilable differences, division of assets, spousal support. Linda leaned closer to whisper, "I do not want to care for an old retiree, Robert. You know what this means." I looked from her to our guests and then noticed a man I did not recognize standing by the gate with a smug grin. Turning my gaze to Michael and Emily, I saw no surprise on their faces. Instead, they exchanged knowing looks as if sharing a secret I was not part of. When I asked what was going on, Michael casually responded, "Dad, you have to understand where we stand. Mom deserves happiness, and we need to consider our future too." Emily added, "Your investments, the business, all of this is a lot to handle. Maybe it is wiser to entrust it to those who grasp it better." At that moment, everything became obvious. It was never truly about Linda's happiness, but about the money, my money, they were thinking about all along. At the age of 62, I would have seemed like an effortless target, the elderly retiree ready to endorse any document without hesitation, willing to divide everything without dispute, or perhaps even pass away conveniently within a few years, leaving them the entire inheritance. Yet, they did not truly know Robert Hall, the CFO. They only knew Robert Hall, the devoted husband and father. I folded the papers with calm determination and placed them in my pocket. "All right," I said simply. "I will sign." The celebration went on around me, but I was detached in my mind. I observed Linda laughing with a stranger and saw my children whispering among themselves, likely plotting the division of my wealth even before the papers were signed. They never realized that over the past 5 years, following my perennially cautious CFO mindset, I had extensively diversified my assets through offshore accounts, investment funds in different names, stocks, and corporations they never suspected existed. 3 days later, I signed the divorce documents. I distributed the apparent assets precisely as dictated by Illinois law. Linda received the house, half of the joint accounts, standard alimony, while the children were given some company stocks and access to a fund I had established many years before. They believed they had hit the jackpot, but in reality, they had lost the game. The day following the signing, I did something completely unforeseen. I vanished. Not in a literal sense, of course, but to Linda, Michael, and Emily, it was as though I had disappeared from the face of the planet. I disconnected my phone, closed all my social media profiles, and relocated to a modest cabin I had purchased quickly in a remote rural area. Near Bend in Oregon, I owned a 10-acre property situated in a remote area without any neighbors nearby. Naturally, in the first days, my old phone kept ringing endlessly with urgent messages from Linda and Robert. They insisted we needed to discuss the alimony arrangements. Michael called, repeatedly leaving voicemails, pleading, "Dad, where are you? We have important questions about the company's finances." Emily was more blunt, saying, "Daddy, this is absurd. You cannot just vanish." But vanish I did, and exactly how I intended. How? The summer turned to fall, and then to winter, seasons passing in complete silence while they searched for Robert Hall. The man who was wounded and betrayed by life was morphing into an entirely different figure. My background as a CFO did not vanish with the divorce. Quite the opposite. For the first time in decades, I was able to fully use my skills for my personal advantage. I established a modest office in the cabin, equipped with 3 monitors, satellite internet, fiber optic connection, and every tool a professional investor would need. I began cautiously day trading, analyzing emerging markets, and investing in tech startups. My edge was clear after 30 years of reading balance sheets, distinguishing reliable companies from the risky ones. Within 6 months, I had doubled my original investment, and in 1 year, it had tripled. Cryptocurrencies were booming back then, but my careful approach kept me clear of the traps that ruined so many inexperienced investors. While others threw money away on meme coins, I built strong positions in blockchain companies that had solid fundamentals. However, money was only part of the puzzle. Was the genuine transformation of Robert Hall 2.0. I started prioritizing my well-being seriously, hitting the gym every morning and exploring Oregon trails on hikes. My diet became well-balanced, and at 63, I was fitter than I had been at 50. I let my beard grow and chose clothing that truly resonated with me, leaving behind the corporate suits I had worn for years. I even picked up the guitar, a passion I had always wished to pursue but never found time for. During one of these early morning walks, I encountered Linda, who owned a quaint bookstore in Bend. She was a 52-year-old woman with authentic gray hair and a smile that brightened the entire space. Though divorced and without children, she possessed a zest for life I had not witnessed in many years. Our initial conversation stretched over 3 hours, discussing books, travel, and the dreams we had once shelved. Linda told me, "You have an intriguing energy." And by our third date, she remarked, "You seem like someone who has faced tough times yet emerged more resilient." She was right. After 8 months of dating, Linda and I married quietly at a small courthouse in Bend. No extravagance, just the 2 of us, 2 witnesses, and the firm belief that we had discovered something authentic. Half a year later, we welcomed Lily, an 8-year-old girl whose biological parents lost custody due to neglect. Watching Linda nurture Lily and witnessing the pure love reflected in the child's eyes revealed to me everything I had lost back in Chicago, and more importantly, what I had gained through that loss. At the same time, my investments were flourishing dramatically, with 2 startups making notable progress. The assets were purchased by major Silicon Valley corporations. My investment portfolio was producing monthly returns that surpassed my previous chief financial officer income. I invested in land, commercial real estate, ownership stakes, and private equity funds. Within 3 years, my wealth had grown beyond what it ever was during my entire marriage to Linda. But what mattered most was the happiness I felt. Lily called me Daddy without a second thought. Clara greeted me every morning as if I were the highlight of her day. We had created a simple yet fulfilling life with family dinners, weekend mountain excursions, and evenings playing word games while Lily worked on her homework at the kitchen table. In the 4th year of this new chapter, the first sign of trouble appeared. My attorney in Chicago contacted me, saying, "Robert, your ex-wife is trying to find me. She wants to renegotiate the alimony terms because she is experiencing financial difficulties." Financial difficulties? How curious. I asked about my children. They had also reached out. Michael mentioned issues with his business. Emily's boutique had shut down last year, and she was seeking financial guidance. I finally smiled after 4 years as I thought about my former family. I told my lawyer, "Please tell them that Robert Hall does not want any contact. If they persist, you have my permission to take any necessary legal actions to protect my privacy." My attorney agreed but warned, "Robert, they seem truly desperate." I responded calmly, Yes, that is exactly what I intended. It was time for the last step of my plan. They were ready to take action, and they had dismissed me, believing I no longer held any worth. Soon they would learn just how valuable I was and the true price of losing me. The following months unfolded like an intricate score of anguish that I watched from afar, much like a maestro witnessing his most challenging masterpiece performed flawlessly. My attorney, Dr. Peterson, became my connection to the downfall of my former family. One chilly morning, Robert called me. "I need to update you on the situation in Chicago. Your ex-wife Linda is facing serious trouble. Apparently the other man, Marcus, I've found out his name, showed his real colors shortly after I vanished. He was not the accomplished entrepreneur he tried to appear. Marcus was in reality a seasoned swindler who had singled out Linda as an easy target. As a recently divorced woman with significant funds, she was vulnerable to his scheme. He persuaded her to pour $200,000 from the asset settlement and an additional $50,000 from the emergency reserve I had set aside for her into his supposed import business. After Marcus fled with the money, Linda learned that the company was entirely fake. None of the documents were authentic. The office was leased month by month, and Marcus Johnson was not even his true identity. Currently, she lives in a modest one-bedroom apartment in Cicero. Peterson added that she lost the house in Wetka and could not keep up with the mortgage without your extra alimony. Ah yes, the alimony, another matter altogether. One element of my strategic planning during the signing of the divorce documents involved my declared income, which consisted solely of my base wage from Midwest Industries. All my more significant assets were channeled through holdings and trusts that did not qualify as regular income. This caused my alimony to be determined based on a much smaller amount than Linda had anticipated. She intended to sustain a comfortable lifestyle on the $1,200 I was obligated to pay monthly, combined with the returns from the investments awarded to her in the divorce. However, the investments she ended up with were exactly those I expected to lose value. For instance, I was aware that Midwest Industries shares were about to face severe market challenges soon after our separation. The stock value plummeted by 60% within the first year. Other assets I left as part of the division proved similarly troublesome. They were high-risk ventures that appeared stable on the outside, but were, in reality, artificially overvalued. Regarding your children, I inquired with Peterson. Michael invested heavily in a cryptocurrency startup that claimed it would transform digital transactions. He committed nearly all the assets from the division, took out a mortgage on his home, and even used his children's college savings for the investment. Unfortunately, the company was a Ponzi scheme, causing him to lose $400,000. Michael's impulsiveness was evident even in his youth. He always sought immediate results and the most straightforward shortcuts. Despite my attempts to instill the virtues of patience and thorough evaluation, he consistently trusted his intuition more than prudent financial advice. Now, instinct had jeopardized his own family's future, and Emily's boutique had gone bankrupt last year. It seemed she expanded too rapidly, launching 2 extra stores without having enough funds to support such growth. When the pandemic struck, she was paying rent for 3 high-end shops in Lincoln Park, but lacked the income to meet those expenses. She is currently burdened with around $200,000 in debt. Emily, my daughter, who always demanded only the best and the most luxurious, I financed her original boutique precisely because I understood she lacked the patience to create a lasting business. She focused solely on the allure of entrepreneurship, not the harsh statistics that decide triumph or failure in retail. They need you more urgently now, Peterson added. Linda phoned my office 17 times last week. Michael sent a 3-page letter detailing his predicament and pleading for a meeting. Emily is apologizing and promising she will never again engage in any plot against you. Plot, what a remarkable choice of word. They were at last confessing that the retirement celebration had been a scheme. Robert, they are truly desperate. Linda mentioned she is contemplating filing for personal bankruptcy. Michael could lose his home, and Emily is currently living with her mother in an apartment in Cicero. I heard all of this while watching Clara and Lily playing in our yard, which is part of our new home, a sprawling ranch of 600 acres that I purchased. Last year, with a panoramic view of the Cascade Mountains, Lily was showing Clara how to ride horses in our modest stable. Their joyful voices resonated across the valley. I finally said to Dr. Peterson, They can keep attempting to reach me, but my stance will not change. Robert Hall does not want any contact with those people. I understand, but Robert, what if they try to find you in person? Linda asked, considering hiring a private investigator. I grinned and said, they are free to try, but they will realize that Robert Hall from Chicago, Illinois, no longer exists in any public database. The man they seek vanished 5 years ago. It was true, I had officially transferred my residence to Oregon, restructured all my enterprises through complicated corporate entities, and even modified some details of my civil records. Not illegally, of course, just leveraging the complexities of the American legal system I had mastered after 3 decades as a chief financial officer. Robert, they are your family, Linda insisted. No, I responded, as I watched Lily run towards the house, shouting, Daddy, Daddy, look what I learned. My family is here. Those people in Chicago were merely an expensive lesson I paid for about trust and loyalty. It was time to send a final signal and close that chapter of my life once and for all. On a spring morning, exactly 5 years after my retirement celebration, I resolved to put an end to that part of my journey. Clara was making pancakes in the kitchen while Lily practiced the piano nearby. The sound of classical music filled the living room, flowing gently through the house. It was a Chopin piece, one of the songs Linda was preparing for the upcoming school recital. I watched this flawless moment at home when my phone interrupted. Dr. Peterson spoke again. Robert, I have to update you about a new situation. Linda is in the hospital. My initial feeling was nothing at all. No anger, no relief, no worry. Only a strange emptiness where 30 years of marital feelings used to be. What happened? I asked politely. She apparently suffered a severe anxiety attack. She is currently receiving treatment for depression and intense financial pressures. Michael phoned my office sobbing, Robert literally crying. He pleaded for just 5 minutes to talk with me. He said he urgently needed advice on how to prevent his family from total bankruptcy. I glanced at my own family. Clara smiled at me from the kitchen and Lily waved from the music room. 5 years ago, I was merely a man who spent his entire life working for people who saw me as no more than an automatic cash source. Now, I was a father, a husband, Lily's mentor, and Clara's true partner. Dr. Peterson, please send the same letter to all of them, I said. May I dictate it now? Certainly. I inhaled deeply and began. Dear Linda, Michael, and Emily, the man you abandoned 5 years ago no longer exists. What lives on has not forgotten your judgment that I was a worthless old retiree. You have now seen how costly that error was. There will be no second chance, no reconciliation, no financial aid. You made your decisions. Rooted in selfishness and ease, now you confront the outcomes sincerely. Robert Hall, that is all. Peterson asked, surprised. No photo included that afternoon. Linda, Lily, and I posed for a professional picture in front of our house, not the original cabin, but the 600-acre estate I purchased in the 3rd year of my fresh start. A stone and timber mansion offering breathtaking views of the mountains, horse stables visible in the distance, a Tesla Model S parked on the circular driveway, and the small airplane I acquired for our weekend trips to Seattle. In the photo, I wore jeans and a flannel shirt, garments I would never have considered in Chicago. Linda shone beautifully in a simple summer dress. Lily held our golden retriever, Duke, whom we adopted the year before. We all smiled genuinely on the back of the picture I wrote by hand. The Hall Family, Oregon, 2024, founded on love, not wealth. 3 weeks later, Peterson called once more. Robert, your letter made an impact. Linda attempted to reach my office 46 times. The first day Michael sent a 12-page reply, which honestly I could not finish reading. It seemed more like a confession of guilt than a response. Emily actually appeared in person at my Chicago office. He said you had won, that they finally realized it was never about money for you, but about respect and loyalty. She wanted me to share that they are proud of the man you have become, but they admit it's too late. Proud? What a strange twist of fate that is. She asked if I felt truly happy when I showed her the photo. For nearly 5 minutes she remained silent. Then she said, he appears 20 years younger. I have never witnessed him smile like that when he lived with us. Emily was always the more insightful of the 2 children. It seemed she had finally realized that the man they recognized in Chicago was not genuinely me, but rather a version shaped by countless years of duties and expectations that were never mutual. Robert, may I ask a personal question? Certainly. Do you feel any satisfaction from their suffering? I pondered the question carefully. Satisfaction? Number relief? Absolutely. For 5 years I carried anger and betrayal, as if it were a stone weighing down my chest. Today that burden has vanished, not because they are in pain, but because I have created something far better. It was true. Witnessing their downfall did not bring me happiness. It brought closure. It was evidence that I had made the correct choice to vanish, to rebuild, to choose authentic love instead of toxic obligation. Is there any chance you might reconsider, even though they were wrong? They are your biological family. Dr. Peterson explained, family is not determined by DNA, but by the daily decisions we make to love, respect, and remain loyal. Clara chooses to love me every single morning. Lily chooses to call me Daddy. I choose to care for and support these people. That is family. As for Linda, Michael, and Emily, they chose to see me merely as a financial source to exploit. They decided to work against me. They decided to abandon me when they believed I no longer held any worth. Those were choices made by family, but not the kind that nurtures. Instead, they tore everything apart. Half a year later, I received a final report from Peterson. Linda had moved into a government-supported assisted living facility. Michael found employment as an accountant at a modest company in Rockford. He was slowly rebuilding his life, but never regained his former lifestyle. Emily returned to college at the age of 42, studying to become an elementary school teacher. They made it through, and that was all I wanted to learn. Now, 2 years after sending that letter, I wake each morning in a home filled with laughter, plans, and sincere love. Lily, now 15, is applying to universities with a full merit scholarship she earned through her own efforts, because Clara and I taught her that true success comes from hard work, not inheritance. Clara expanded her bookstore to 3 cities in Oregon and is thinking about writing a novel. As for me, at 67, I am happier than I ever dreamed possible. My fortune keeps increasing, but it now has a different meaning, not to impress or support those who viewed me as a tool, but to create a genuine legacy with people who love me for who I am, not for what I possess. Sometimes Clara asks if I miss my old life, and I always say, you cannot miss something you never truly had. The betrayal by Linda, Michael, and Emily was not just the end of a marriage and family ties. It was the beginning of the real Robert Hall, a new chapter of life. A man discovered that the ultimate form of revenge is not in ruining your foes, but in creating a life so rich and meaningful that they no longer matter. He showed me that love cannot be purchased, yet it can slip away, that family is something earned, not owed, and that often the best reply to betrayal is not fury, but the calm detachment born from truly living well. If you found this story inspiring, please like, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't joined our community yet, make sure to subscribe and press the bell icon so you don't miss new stories like this one. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.